Hi everyone. Today we are going to be doing a mixed review of 10.5. And so the last 3 days, the last three videos you've watched, again, have focused on one trig function each day, where I just told you in the directions that we were using sine or cosine or tangent. Today, as you can see, it just says we are going to use the relationships to find the different side lengths. And it just says to find x or to find a side length. So we're going to need to identify which which trig function we're going to use on our own. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. Whoops, there we go. All right, starting with this first one. All right, again, my reference angle is here. Oops, let me get to a thinner pen. There we go. My reference angle here in this corner is 43 degrees. And so if I identify the two sides that are labeled here, if I go across the triangle, x is the opposite side. And then if I look at where 8 is across from the right angle. And so 8 is the hypotenuse. Okay? And so again, now I have to actually think here and figure out which one of my trig functions am I going to use. Right? And so again, my thought process is that I'm trying to find the opposite side, and I know the hypotenuse. So when I look at my three acronyms, which one uses opposite and hypotenuse? And in this case, it's the first one, sine. Okay, so then I have sine of 43 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Okay. Now I know we didn't see a lot of these types of problems in terms of the solving that we're about to do. We only actually did one out of the 6 different examples that you've done over the last 3 days. But this theoretically should be the easier type of solving. It's not a two-step equation because I can just multiply by 8 on both sides. And by multiplying by 8, I now have x by itself. And so this is what I'm going to type in to decimals. Okay, so again, bring up decimals. Make sure that you are in degrees. And we are typing in 8 times the sine of 43. Okay, rounding to the nearest tenth, I get 5.5 as my answer. I don't have any measurements or units, so I'm just going 5.5 units in this case. Okay. So you see now that's kind of an added layer here in this mixed review, is that you need to identify which trig function you are using. Let's look at another one. All right, starting at my reference angle, identifying the sides that are labeled. I have to go across the entire triangle to get to x, so that is my opposite side. In this case, 6 is right next to 29. And so that is my adjacent side. Things are being a little slow here. Sorry about that. Let me try to reload. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So from my reference angle, I had to go all the way across the triangle to get to x, so that's my opposite side. And then the 6 was right next to the adjacent, right next to the 29, which would make that adjacent. And so once again, referencing my acronym, SOHCAHTOA, I am looking for the opposite side, and I know the adjacent. All right, so I look at my different acronyms. Cosine is the only one that uses opposite and adjacent. Oh, I'm sorry. Tangent, let's try that again. Tangent is the only one that uses opposite and adjacent. And so it's tangent of 29 equals opposite over adjacent. Again, a one-step equation here. Multiply by 6 to get x by itself. And then on decimals, we have 6 times the tangent of 29. and I get 3.3. That doesn't round up, so just 3.3, and we are still just talking in a general term of units. Okay. Okay. So again, using that reference angle and labeling the sides of the triangle to figure out the trig function. Once you have that part, the solving, there's only two different ways of solving we've worked through. Okay, let's go through another one here. Now this one, the directions say find AB. So first thing you probably want to do is actually mark AB, which is in this case, the hypotenuse right here. Mark AB with the letter X, right? Just because that's what we're used to using. Okay. Now that is very blurry. That is supposed to say 48 right there. All right. So on your notes there, you probably need to clarify that. That should say 48 is my reference angle. I've already identified X as the hypotenuse, so we might as well just write that in. And again, 20 is right next to it, so that is adjacent. And so using SOHCAHTOA, I'm looking for the hypotenuse. I know the adjacent, so that is cosine. So cosine of 48 equals adjacent over hypotenuse, 20 over x. Again, I kind of established this in the last video that we did on tangent 10.5c, that when the x is in the denominator, there's a pattern that happens every time, where you end up getting the adjacent side, in this case 20, being divided by the trig function, so 20 over the cosine of 48. And so let's go back here, and 20 divided by cosine of 48, and it looks like I get 29.9 units as my answer. Okay. All right, one more. Again, it just says, let me, there we go, now we can see that. It just says kind of AB generally, so let's mark AB as the hypotenuse again. This is a 57 as my reference angle. 19 is on the opposite side of the triangle. Again, X I identified as the hypotenuse before. So using SOHCAHTOA, I know the opposite. I'm looking for the hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So the sine of 57 equals opposite over hypotenuse, 19 over x. Again, this pattern keeps happening. If you were to show your solving steps, you would get the opposite side divided by the trig function. So 19 divided by the sine of 57. Okay, and I get 22.7 there. And I'm in units since I don't have any actual units. Okay. So this 10.5 ABC mixed review probably be a little bit more complicated than the last three assignments, just because, again, it's now mixed, so you really have to label. That's going to be the one thing that I'm going to require when you ask for help with these, is that the first thing you need to do is at least label your triangle with opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent, so you're giving yourself the best chance to be successful. Okay, so at a minimum, label your triangle before just trying to ask for help, because that's a really good starting point. All right, so again, complete the 10.5 ABC mixed review, or just review, and have a good day.